I want to begin today by reading you something. It's from the first chapter of the book of Ezekiel, and I want you to simply hear it before we try to interpret it. As I looked, I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight, their feet were like those of a calf, and gleamed like burnished bronze. Under their wings, on their 4 sides, they had human hands. All 4 of them had faces and wings, and the wings of one touched the wings of another. Each one went straight ahead, and they did not turn as they moved. Their faces looked like this. Each of the 4 had the face of a human being, and on the right side, each had the face of a lion, and on the left, the face of an ox. Each also had the face of an eagle. As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each creature, with its 4 faces. This was the appearance and structure of the wheels. They sparkled like topaz, and all 4 looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. And then, above all of this, a vast expanse, like ice, like crystal, and above the expanse, a throne of lapis lazuli, and on the throne, a figure with the appearance of a human being, gleaming like amber, surrounded by radiant light, like a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. The vision of Ezekiel is one of the most overwhelming passages in the entire Hebrew Bible. It has been the subject of mystical contemplation in the Jewish tradition, the merkavah, the chariot, the throne, for more than 2,000 years. The rabbis were cautious about it. The Talmud records debates about who was allowed to study the first chapter of Ezekiel and under what conditions. The vision was considered too charged, too dangerous, too easily capable of overwhelming unprepared minds. Carl Jung would not have found this caution surprising, because what Ezekiel encounters in this vision is, in Jung's framework, an encounter with the self. And the self, when it appears in its full numinous power, is genuinely dangerous, not in the sense of being evil, but in the sense of being overwhelming. The ego that meets the self without adequate preparation is not necessarily strengthened by the encounter. It can be shattered. Let me explain what Jung meant by the self, and why this vision is such a precise image of it. The self, in Jung's psychology, is not the ego, the conscious everyday I that navigates the world, makes decisions, and maintains the sense of personal identity. The self is the totality of the psyche, everything conscious and unconscious, everything light and dark, everything known and unknown. It includes the ego, but vastly exceeds it. It is, in Jung's understanding, both the center and the circumference of the psychic whole. When the self appears in dreams or visions, and Jung documented this across cultures, across traditions, across the history of art and religion, it tends to appear in certain characteristic forms. It appears as a quaternity, a structure of 4, 4 faces, 4 wings, 4 directions. It appears as a circle, the mandala, the wheel, or the sphere. It appears with qualities of numinosity, that specific combination of awe and terror that the German theologian Rudolf Otto called the mysterium tremendum et fascinans, the mystery that both terrifies and draws. Ezekiel's vision is a quaternity within a quaternity within a circle. 4 living creatures, each with 4 faces, 4 wheels, each a wheel within a wheel. The whole structure moving in all 4 directions simultaneously. And above it all, the radiant figure on the throne of lapis lazuli. Jung would say, Ezekiel has seen the self, the 4 faces of the living creatures, human, lion, ox, and eagle, have fascinated commentators in every tradition. In the Christian iconographic tradition, they become the symbols of the four evangelists. In the Jewish mystical tradition, they represent aspects of the divine throne. But Jung would read them as a psychological quaternity, four modes of being, four aspects of the complete human reality: the human face, consciousness, rationality, the capacity for reflection, the lion, courage, instinct, and the assertion of vital power, the ox, endurance, labor, patience, and the body's willingness to bear weight, the eagle, far-seeing vision, the capacity to rise above and see the whole. No single face is primary. No single mode of being exhausts the totality. The complete creature, the individuated self, has all four. It moves simultaneously in all directions, without turning, because the integrated psyche does not have a single axis of orientation. It faces the full compass of reality at once. The wheel within the wheel has generated almost as much commentary as the four faces. Jung understood it as an image of a dynamic, self-organizing totality, a system that contains and is animated by its own principle of movement. The wheel does not need to be turned from outside, it moves. This is a precise image of what Jung called the individuation process, the movement of the psyche towards wholeness that is not willed by the ego, but that happens, that the ego can cooperate with or resist, but that originates in something deeper than the ego's conscious intention. The wheel within the wheel turns because that is what it does. The self moves towards wholeness because that is its nature. Ezekiel's vision is not comfortable. The radiance, the wings, the wheels, the crystal expanse, these are not gentle images. The encounter with the numinous, as Jung insisted, is always disturbing to the ego. The self is not simply a larger version of the conscious self. It contains what the conscious self does not yet know. And what it does not yet know includes things that will require it to change profoundly. Ezekiel falls on his face when he sees the vision. The appropriate response to the encounter with the self is not confidence, but prostration. Not the claim to have understood, but the acknowledgement that what has appeared exceeds understanding. And then the vision speaks. God says to Ezekiel, "Son of man, stand up on your feet and I will speak to you." And as he speaks, spirit enters Ezekiel and raises him to his feet. The encounter with the self does not leave the person on the ground permanently. The prostration is real. The overwhelming is genuine. But the self that overwhelms the ego also raises it. The encounter does not destroy the ego. It relocates it from the center, where it mistakenly believed itself to be, to its proper place within the larger role. This is what Jung would call the second half of the numinous encounter. The vision shatters and then reconstitutes. It overwhelms and then raises. What comes back to its feet after Ezekiel's encounter is not the same man who fell. He is a prophet now. He has been commissioned. He has seen what he could not have invented, and he carries it forward into his ministry, into the difficult years of exile, the siege of Jerusalem, the grief of the people in Babylon, out of the strength of that first overwhelming vision. The wheel within the wheel is always turning. The four faces face in all directions at once, and above the crystal expanse, on the throne of lapis lazuli, the radiant figure still sits. This was the appearance and the likeness of the glory of the Lord. Not the glory itself, the appearance of the likeness of the glory. Even Ezekiel's language recedes into approximation. The encounter with the self exceeds what language can contain, but he writes it down anyway. He preserves the vision in the imperfect vessel of words, and 2,500 years later, we are still reading it.